Hi everyone, Daniel here from SamMobile TV. The S23 FE, controversial phone. I don't know why. Is it because it's got the Exynos? Is it because it's got thick bezels? Both of those things are inconsequential. This phone, for its price point, punches above its weight when it comes to features, specs, and performance. So let's talk about it. Here is our review of the Galaxy S23 FE. Myself personally, I'm used to using Samsung's top tier offerings. S23 Ultra, Galaxy Z Fold 5, Tab S9 Ultra. I have the best of the best, and I have done for a long time. I'm not bragging, although it is kind of feel like I am. This review though, I've channeled my inner general consumer, the smartphone user who is shopping based on price and just wants a phone that can keep up with their normal day-to-day life. I've gone into that, I've felt that, and I've become a part of that world. And I've reviewed the S23 FE based on that. I've done everything with this phone that you might think a general consumer would. I've emailed, I've done social media browsing, photography, all of that stuff that someone would use their phone for, I've done with this. As usual, this review will be broken into 3 different categories. I'm going to talk about what it's like based on its design, how it works carrying it around every day, looking at the display and interacting with the screen with those chunky bezels. Talk about the cameras and how they perform based on the usage that I've used them for. And then how does the battery and the performance hold up with Samsung's re-optimized Exynos 2200, which is the model I have here in Australia. Let's kick it off with the design and the display. I'm not going to carry on with the specs of the display in this review. I've covered all that already in my initial hands-on, which I'd had about a week with the phone at that point already. So go and check the hands-on video out if you're looking for more detailed spec information about the display. What I'm going to focus on here is how the look and the feel of the device plays into how you actually use the phone itself. The first thing I noticed is it's much heavier than you would anticipate. A lot of that's down to the change in materials. You've got the glass here versus plastic from the FE, but also it's not using Samsung's Armor aluminium, so it's not as light around the frame as what the S23 series is as well. It's 209 grams. I know I said I wasn't going to talk specs, but that I felt was worth reiterating in this video. Weight aside too, it's also quite a wide phone. It's almost as wide as the S23 Ultra is. Not as wide, but it is almost there. I'm perhaps used to narrower phones now that I'm using my Fold 5 alongside this, so that probably plays into it a little bit too. Taking all that out of the equation, it does still feel a little bit wide and a little bit heavy for what it is, but it's not a deal breaker. It's not something that I'm actively concerned about when I'm using it. The thing that I don't like is the glossy back finish. It's grippy, sure, but it just doesn't feel premium. And it does show fingerprints a lot more easier than what a matte finish would. So that's just something to note. People buying this phone probably aren't focused on design too much, so it might not even be that big of a deal, and you'll probably chuck a case on it. So is that the end of the world? No. It is comfy to hold thanks to the rounded aluminium frame. It is slightly curved around the frame, so it does kind of fit more naturally in the shape of your hand. And the thing that's really obvious about it is it's just a phone. There's nothing special about it. There's nothing inherently unique about it. It's just a standard slab smartphone released in 2023. You've got glass front and back. You've got aluminium frame. You have the Infinity O cutout around the front. It's very much a phone that represents what a phone looks like. If you were to put a generic phone on a TV commercial, this would be it. When we look at the design on the front, you do notice the bezels for maybe like a minute. I'm not saying that they should be this thick. I'm just saying that to buy this phone and use this phone, they are not the defining factor. Because ultimately the display itself is actually quite nice to interact with. It's got really, really good colors. The refresh rate is sensational. The fluidity of the display is something you'll appreciate immediately when you start using it. I like how it's just flat. Like I've used curved displays for so long. Sometimes it's a bit of a change to go to a flat display, but I actually really like the flatness of this, if that makes sense. It kind of adds to the display even more and makes the display pop out even more than it already did. Watching movies on this is great. Watching YouTube videos is great. Outdoors, with its high brightness mode and also vision booster, you do get an extra bit of brightness and some decent color representation when you are outdoors. Useful, very, very useful display in all sorts of situations. And like the thing about that is what we're doing with your display outdoors is browsing social media, looking at YouTube videos. And for that, the brightness of this display goes high enough that you won't have any issues and you won't need to cover it with shade, for example. I had the A54 earlier in the year, and the display on that, whilst it was 120 Hertz, nowhere near matches up to the 120 Hertz on here. That was Super AMOLED. This is Dynamic AMOLED. There's a very big difference. and the optimizations of this display far and away better. The sound is really good on these speakers as well. I think you'll be more than happy with the dual speaker setup. You can hear for yourself. We're going to let you know our first impressions and cover 3 key areas that you should know in our week that we've spent with it. We're going to look at the design. We're going to definitely look at the cameras. We're also going to take a look at the performance. Let's start with design. Now let's get into the cameras. This review is not a deep dive into the cameras themselves. They may come up in terms of specs, but it's not the focus. The focus here is on the output and performance of these cameras. The main question I wanted to answer myself, would these cameras be suitable enough of how I take photos with the life that I have around me? I'm not factoring in YouTube here because being a YouTuber, I need some things that this just can't do. Things like 4K portrait video, for example, which is what this is being shot with right now. So to give you some context, I'm a dad of 2 kids. One's 5, one's 2. They run around a lot. They're very active and they're always creating really special moments between them that I need to capture. Whether it be my son playing football, whether it be my daughter being on the swing, there's things that happen that I need my camera to be ready for. The thing is, in my usage, I haven't had any issues of snapping pics of them within a decent range. Some photos are coming up on the screen now. As you can see, the portrait mode's really good. The 3x camera does a really decent job, and I haven't had any real shutter issues when I use that camera in particular. Outside of those main instances where it comes to taking photos of my family and the things that we do as a family, I like taking landscape photography. I really do enjoy it. I live near the beach, so it gives me ample opportunity to snap a lot of photos. And as you can see now, there's photos that I'm putting up now that sort of showcase the range and the capabilities that these cameras have. There's a range of different focal lengths that I'm using. There's a range of different lighting environments. There is some things that I noticed, and this is just me because I'm aware of it. There's some photos that lack a little bit in HDR, in the dynamic range. It's not a big issue, but just you might be aware of it when you're using it. If you understand photography, you'll know some of the things that are blown out, and you'll just have to sort of find some workarounds for that. In terms of video, it basically has all the video functions from the S23 and performs very similarly to the S22 from last year. A lot of that's down to the fact it's using the Exynos 2200 and how that handles processing a video. It's got decent stabilization, and 4K 30 looks really good, and the cameras are fairly consistent, as you can see from this video swapping between all the lenses here. I do miss the more capable processing from the S23 and the Fold 5. The stabilization definitely is better thanks to the extra processing that the HN2 for Galaxy is capable of. I don't really use the selfie camera, but it's here and it does okay. Overall, the camera experience is good for its price. You get all the flagship camera modes, including full versions of single take, which honestly is Samsung's best camera feature to date. Last point to be made here is about the performance, the day-to-day general output that the Exynos 2200 provides you. Lots is being made here of it having the Exynos 2200. A lot of people are saying Exynos is trash and Exynos is garbage and Samsung won't have my money if they're using Exynos. A lot of you aren't realizing the work that Samsung is putting into Exynos since they've stopped using it with the Galaxy S22 range last year. The Exynos 2200 has been optimized incredibly well for the S23 FE. I would go far as to call it the Exynos 2200 Plus. It's that much better than what it was last year, and it does feel like a generation leap in terms of its output. If it was the same Exynos that launched with the S22 from last year, I would say 100%. Get your pitchforks out and march down the street, whatever it is that you feel like doing in the comments. But it's not. It's better. Samsung have optimized it here, and it's got all the fluid performance across all the areas that you would want it to. The day-to-day usage I've been undertaking with this is emails, social media, taking photos and videos here and there, really just using it like a phone, taking phone calls, messages, all that sort of stuff that you would do with a phone on a normal day-to-day thing. For all of those, it excelled. Smooth, no stutters, it was a really well-performing chip and optimized for all of those tasks. From a battery perspective, the 4500 milliamp hour cell does okay. I wouldn't say it's a world beater, but it definitely will give you enough in your day-to-day to last you more than the day. For that type of usage, I'm getting between 6 to 7 to 8 hours of screen on time across 2 days. Because its standby time is actually really good, it means that I don't have to worry too heavily about it charging it overnight, and I can keep using it that next day. The one thing I missed from the A54 is no wireless charging. Thankfully, we have that here with wireless power share as well. It's capable enough to run Samsung DeX, both wired and wirelessly. So again, because it's got that flagship processor, it is capable of flagship performance stuff. If you are a DeX user and you're looking to save on your next smartphone purchase, I'd consider this. Overall, I like the FE. I like that Samsung has brought it back this year. Some people had take one look at the phone and think that it's an A series. And I can understand that. Samsung's design philosophy this year is to be consistent with its range. Minimal camera setup, thicker bezels on phones that don't cost over $1,000 or whatever it is that they've got in their flagship range. So I get that you look at this and you think, what are they doing? But looks are always deceiving when it comes to Samsung. Look what we all said about the S23 Ultra before it launched, before it came out. And now it's pretty much the phone of the year. But this, for its price and for what you get from it, it's honestly a solid contender. 3 cameras at the back. You've got 1 high resolution camera. You've got a 120 Hz adaptive refresh rate display with a flagship processor, all for $599 US. It's hard to beat. I hope you've enjoyed our FE review. I really appreciate you coming by. If you're liking what we're doing here at SamMobile TV, please subscribe. We've got lots of reviews on the channel already, plus next year, plenty to come as well. So come stick around, come hang out, and also check out our website. Lots of Samsung content on there too. We'll see you next time. Thanks.